Hello everyone, I'm Prix1322 and welcome to the second round of the Multi-Class Endurance Championship Season 4 held on Olympic Grand Prix. As you see the start for each race, you can see that we're in the Sedans class for this round, with GT1 drivers driving the Schafter V12, GT2 drivers in the Fugitive, and GT3 drivers are in the Asea. For all the information you need about this championship, including the full calendar and round by round information, check the link in the first line of the description. It tells you everything that you need to know, where we're going to be racing, what classes and what cars we're going to be racing in. It gives you all the information that you need. Link is in the first line of the description. And if you did miss out on round 1, the round 1 video, feel free to go back and watch that. There is a playlist link in the description as well that can take you to the playlist for this season of the Multi-Class Endurance Championship. But here we are. I am on the grid for the start of the race. GT2 I am in, as we saw from round 1's video. The GT1s go off first of all, and obviously we're not racing those. And then it's our turn in GT2 to start the race. And as it happens, I actually get a really good start. And you know, I'm starting in 4th place and I get the jump up into 3rd place straight away. And I was thinking of maybe that I was going to get up into 2nd there, but then Asea just catches my rear back end of the car, and that sends me around a little bit, puts me way down the order. I managed to hang around the outside of the first corner there, or the second corner, and I managed to hold 5th place at that point. But yeah, it was looking like it could have been an even better start, but it was just one of those things that happens in racing, and you know, just a racing incident. He ended up backing out of it and I was able to continue. It certainly could have been much worse. So yeah, I managed to only lose 1 position overall from the start, but it certainly could have been a little bit better. I was challenging Dr. Peppers for 4th place, and then Mike goes up my inside there to try and take 5th place away from me. But ultimately it all stays exactly the same, and it's only further around the first lap that we do see a few position changes, as myself and Dr. Peppers get a decent run onto the back straight and are able to overtake Drubert over, and he's over on the left hand side there, so we both gain a place, and then I gain a little bit on the end of the back straight to Dr. Peppers, and I'm just seeing where I can possibly go for an overtake. And you know, getting it done early in the race like this, and I've had some good starts to my races, is quite handy. And as you can see, I managed to get a decent little cutback there on the hairpin and get up ultimately into 3rd place by the end of the first lap. So it was looking like I might have been in 3rd or 2nd place after the first corner, and then I went all the way back down again, but ultimately I ended up finishing the first lap in 3rd place, so not too bad of a start to the race. Now we're looking at obviously the start of the races in GT1, GT2 and GT3 at this point. In GT1 it was a bit crazy. There was a big crash that went on in the mid-pack there. Oracle and Flaming Gun managed to get through that quite nicely, luckily for them. And then Oracle goes for an overtake down on the inside to get up into 4th place in GT1. Just ahead is Murphos as well in 4th place. As you can see, we've switched to his perspective now, just a little bit way further down around the lap. He started in 3rd place. He's obviously my teammate on the Ron Racing team, and he gets up into 2nd place when a slight mistake is made there by Nico, and Oracle manages to get ahead of him as well, as you might be able to see on the right hand side. So Oracle is in 3rd place, Murphos is in 2nd, now chasing down Nefarious, who got a good start in GT1 in his first reserve driver role this week, and is leading the way so far. So that's the start of the GT1 race. The GT2 race we've already seen from my perspective, but we're going to see it from a few other perspectives here. We got Asea, who ultimately is the one that catches my rear end, and you can see it's just a little bit of lag involved and nothing really you can really do about that. Mike BDUFC gets a good start going up the inside here on the left hand side, but as you can see, that's me hanging around the outside. And Asea ultimately has the worst start you could possibly have to a race really, and ends up on his roof, and Amarogko, who caused that incident, has to wait for him as well. So yeah, not the best start for some of the field in GT2. We'll obviously stick with the action a little bit until we see Mike trying to go up my inside. He actually does a good move most of the way through. It's just that he clips the inside barrier, as you'll see, and that's what sends him crashing into me and then turning around a little bit as well. So that's where he loses time and loses that overtake. Now for GT3. From Evil's perspective, he gets a really good launch off the line and gets into 1st place straight away. Dromballs is challenging him for 2nd place, but ultimately he gets straight through there. And then we switch to Jonty's perspective, so we're seeing from towards the back end of the field with John T and Horst here. Pretty clean so far when it comes to GT3 around the first few corners, but that isn't going to last as we get around the next few corners. We are going to see a few crashes, and the big winner of this is Horst, as you'll see on the right hand side, but we're going to see it from both perspectives, and that's the brilliant thing about being able to make these videos with so many different perspectives from so many different people in all these classes. We can see all sorts of different action, and to be honest, as you can see there, we've seen a crash from multiple perspectives involving multiple drivers. But if I were to include every single bit of footage that I have from everybody, these videos would be 3 hours long. Coming on to the end of the first lap, we see that Dromballs goes for a move on the inside of Happy Gster, trying to take away third place in GT3. They both slow each other down, and Horst tries to go in the middle of them. Doesn't quite work out, but ultimately Dromballs gets that third place, and Horst manages to take fourth place in GT3. In the lead of GT3, we've got Evil and Jean-Luc. Now here's the start, the first few corners from the same team perspective from the Byte team. GT1 we got Supply GTA with GT2 Imaronco and GT3 Horst Demo, all from the same team, all started at the back of the grid for this round. And I will try to do this for every single video. Obviously we saw it from my team, the Ron Racing team, in round 1. I'll try to do it for every single race that maybe we'll try to focus on the team that's always starting at the back of the grid, so you can see the race, the start of each race from each perspective. It just depends whether I actually have the footage from all the drivers. So coming on to lap 2, and I'm chasing down second place JB Car Freak. Obviously you saw me get up into third place by overtaking Dr. Peppers. He makes a slight mistake on the inside prop there, and I managed to make the overtake going into that corner, keep it going towards the hairpin, and I do get up into second place. So I've had a really good start to the race. Now Brady, who's currently in the lead of GT2, he started in first place. He started on pole position, so he's obviously had a very good start starting in the lead, so he's got a good gap and built a good gap whilst we're all battling around. Meanwhile, as that was happening in GT1, as the GT1s come onto their third lap at the end of their second lap, Murphos is going for an overtake on Nefarious, and he gets it done as they start their third lap, and he doesn't look back from that point. And that's pretty much the win done for Murphos. He's having a very good showing. Again, at the pretty much the exact same time as all that's going on, and I got the overtake into second place on pretty much the same lap, we have overtakes and a battle going on for first place in GT3. We saw Jean-Luc get ahead of Evil there to take the lead in GT3, and whilst those two are battling, Dromballs has managed to make up time on both of them and is now right behind them. So there's battles going on everywhere, and that's the beauty of multi-class racing. 3 different races all in one pretty much. Dromballs gets a good run around that corner and manages to get up ahead of Evil going into there to take second place in GT3, and then just further around the lap he's hurrying Jean-Luc, who's obviously just taken the lead, and Dromballs is going for the lead of GT3 already. So it's pretty hectic at the top of GT3, but a 3-way battle for the lead. It's always good to see, and Jean-Luc just makes a little mistake on the inside there. It means that he doesn't get an awful lot of momentum going onto the bridge section here. Dromballs manages to get up the inside there and ultimately takes the lead away. And similar to Murphos in GT1, that's pretty much all that we see. Dromballs manages to drive away, same as what Murphos does in GT1. So the GT3 and GT1 lead battles are over for this race at this point. Evil manages to take second place ahead of Jean-Luc here, but ultimately in GT3, Horst Demo, whose perspective we saw at the start of the race as well, he comes up through the pack and takes second place, with Evil finishing in third. And you can see the order as we come through, see the camera shot here of the GT1s, GT2s and GT3s pretty much on lap 3, and you can see them all go through the shot in different sections. So really nice shot this one on Olympic GP. Obviously Brady going past the screen there in the lead of GT2, and then myself in second place. But yeah, there isn't an awful lot to really talk about in GT1 and GT3. The battles were over, at least for the lead, pretty quickly. Dromballs got into the lead as we saw, and he takes that to the end, and then Murphos got into the lead in GT1 and he takes it to the end as well. Oracle does manage to overtake Nefarious, and they have a good battle throughout the race, and Oracle ultimately finishes second in GT1. But when it comes to GT2, there was a bit more to talk about and quite an interesting tactical battle in terms of pit stops. So that's what we're going to mainly focus on, just because, you know, the GT1 and GT3, there wasn't really an awful lot going on when it comes to the lead battle. We're going to focus a little bit more on the GT2 battle this time around for round 2. Obviously, I was involved in it as well. But yeah, there was a really interesting tactical battle and a 4-way battle for the lead at one point. So we have all that to come, and then obviously at the end of the video we do focus on the Xbox One and the PC races as well, and I explain what happened there. But yeah, as you might be able to see from this perspective, the GT1s are already, you know, up there with the GT3s, and that's what this race is being all about, to be honest. It's so hectic with traffic. The GT1s obviously being the Schafter V12, which are technically in the sports class, but they can be used in sedan races. They are so much quicker than everything else, and the Fugitives are, you know, relatively quicker than the Aseas, but they're a little bit closer together. So it's pretty much for GT2s and GT3s being overtaken all the time. And as my teammate Merfos in the lead of GT1 comes round to lap me already, you know, only sort of 15-20 minutes into the race, the GT1s are starting to lap everybody in GT2 and GT3. I come in and make my pit stop, and this was a really a well-timed pit stop, this one, because, you know, the top 3 and ultimately in the end the top 4 in GT1 all pass me whilst I'm in the pit lane, so I don't have to worry about losing time when they pass me on the track. So I made a good decision to get an early pit stop out of the way from second place, and as you can see, the 4th GT1 car of Trusk there comes past, and you know, like I said, that's what this race is characterized by. So much traffic on a city circuit that's closed in like this. It's quite difficult to manage that traffic. A few laps down the line, Mike BWFC, who was in 4th place before all the pit stops started, he makes his pit stop, so I managed to obviously overhaul him when he does that. Then the lap later, Dr. Peppers, who was just behind me, does the same. You know, when Dr. Peppers and Mike BWFC make their pit stops a few laps after mine, normal service has been resumed, and I'm still in 2nd place overall. Now Brady, who's in the lead of GT2, he doesn't make a pit stop for a long time. As you can see, the gap here from the spectator camera shot is quite large. Obviously you've got Brady, then myself, Dr. Peppers and Mike. Those two are all 3 of us are doing pretty similar pace at this point, and all 3 of us are actually catching Brady for who's in the lead. So he's doing the right tactic really to stay out. You know, he's in the lead, he doesn't need to make a pit stop at this point as long as he's quick enough, but all 3 of us are catching him, so it's working out well for us that we are gaining up. Obviously he had a gap after the first few laps because he started on pole position, and he was able to, you know, just build that gap. Obviously that's Merfos coming through and overtaking the GT2s for the 2nd time already. So like I said, it's just being overtaken by GT1s all over the place in this race. Very hectic, but yeah, he ultimately, Brady decides to make his first pit stop around 45 minutes into the race. It's quite late into the race, and obviously as you can see here, this will be where you know, we find out whether I have managed to put in enough quicker lap times over the first stint to be able to overhaul him and when he comes in for his pit stop. And as it turns out, as you can see here, I do manage to overtake him. My laps during the course of since I made my early pit stop, my laps have been quicker than Brady's, and I've been able to overtake him throughout the pit stop phase, and even Dr. Peppers is right up close behind Brady. So that original gap that he had from starting in the lead of the race on pole position has evaporated, and we're all very, very close together now. Now, just after that had happened, you know, I've just taken the lead. I'm coming up to overtake this GT3 car of Shady Fruit, and he makes a little mistake, and it's a little bit awkward getting past him, and I obviously made a mistake originally as well. Being in the lead, I kind of lost my rhythm a little bit, and because of that I lost quite a bit of time. And as you can see, it's very, very close. Brady has managed to catch me up in that little phase, and we've got Brady's perspective on the left, Mike's perspective on the right, Brady's in second place in GT2, Mike is in fourth place in GT2. In between us, I'm obviously ahead of Brady, ahead of Mike is Dr. Peppers, and we have a four-way battle for the lead in GT2. It's absolutely crazy that, it's so close like this. There's only about half a second between each of us. 2 seconds cover the four of us. But at this point, Mike makes a really, really good strategical decision and makes another pit stop. Now, I could have made a pit stop as well, and really I should have done. I certainly should have done it earlier than what I did. And this is where I make my sort of biggest mistake of the race, really. But Mike makes a very, very early pit stop. Myself and Brady lose a bit of time on that first corner there, and that allows Dr. Peppers to get up into second place. But whilst all this is going on, Mike is able to run at his own pace, at least for one lap, until Dr. Peppers makes his pit stop. So, as you can see here, we're almost 3 wide going down the back straight on this lap. We're having a crazy race and a crazy battle between ourselves. I'm trying to defend as much as I can to keep the lead of the race, but kind of because pit stops are quite a new thing to the MCEC, I'm losing the bigger picture in this, and I'm not realizing. I'm thinking I've got the race lead, I should try to keep it, but I'm losing the bigger picture of, well, we're all losing time because of this. And I failed to recognize that Mike, who was in fourth place and had set some very quick lap times, obviously to bring himself back into it after that initial crash when he tried to overtake me on lap 1, he had made his early pit stop and he's in clean air at the minute. So the very next lap, Dr. Peppers makes his late lunge for his pit stop as well. Obviously to try and cover off what Mike has done, and he realizes that he's losing time, but he just can't do it, and Mike has been able to do enough in that lap to overtake him, and that means Mike is up into third place. So what we've got at the moment in the GT2 battle is 2 groups essentially. There's myself and Brady in first and second places, and we've only taken 1 pit stop. There are 3 mandatory pit stops that you have to take during the course of the race, by the way. As you can see, there's myself and Brady in sort of the first group, and then there's Mike and Dr. Peppers in the second group behind. But because they have made their second pit stop, they are trying their best to go as quickly as possible, put those laps down, put those good lap times in, so that if myself and Brady lose time by battling with each other, which is exactly what we're doing, as you can see here, and certainly my second stint, I was just nowhere near as quick once I got a little bit of pressure going on, and like I said, I lost the big picture of what was going on. I was certainly a lot quicker when I was chasing Brady, but as soon as he made his pit stop, I just lost all sort of concentration and just feel for the car, really. I just didn't feel comfortable whatsoever, and as you can see there, I wasn't driving very well making that overtake, but it was quite a late one, and that was the point when I made that move that I realized this isn't helping me, this isn't helping either of us. I should have pitted a lot earlier, but at this point, this is where I decide that I should pit, and this is where I ultimately do decide to make my second pit stop, but it's already too late. I've already spent too many laps out in front, battling, defending, going slower than what I otherwise could have done and what I was doing in the first few laps in the first stint. The damage has already been done. Mike passes me when I come in for my pit stop. Dr. Peppers passes me as well, and I end up coming back out in what is a net third place. Obviously I'm in fourth place on the road, but myself, Mike and Dr. Peppers have all done 2 pit stops, whereas Brady is back in the lead, but he's only done 1 pit stop, and you can only make your next pit stop 20 minutes. It has to be at least 20 minutes after the previous pit stop, so he has to do late pit stops now. He's going to be behind us in terms of when we make our pit stops. But for me to have made my early pit stop, and I was the first person in GT2 to make my first pit stop, it was just a bit of a shame that I didn't realise what was going on in terms of the bigger picture of the race, and cover off what Mike was doing in the first instance. But he made a great strategic decision there. At this point of the race, a little bit further on, we lose Supply GTA from a disconnection, and it was actually sort of quite a unique thing that happened with that. When he disconnects, his car, for some bizarre reason, transforms itself through the barriers into the pit lane exit. And our pit watcher, we have guys in the pit lane to record when people do their pit stops and make sure everyone's doing it. Our pit watcher has a bit of trouble because you can't, once someone's disconnected, the car is meant to disappear. Sometimes it glitches out and it doesn't, and when that happens you can't get in it, you can't drive it, you can't move it, so it's ultimately up to the hearse, which is one of the cars from one of our pit watchers, to try and remove that car from the pit lane. And this is something that we've never really had before, and especially considering the pit lane itself has, you know, only one lane. It was vital that this was done. The pit lane was closed at this point. Thankfully it didn't affect anybody's races, but yeah, just a really weird incident there, but thankfully, like I say, it didn't affect anybody's races. So just a little bit after that incident, Brady makes his second pit stop as well, and as you can see, the battle is pretty much resumed. I do manage to reel him in a little bit during the course of those few laps, and I'm right on his tail. Basically, we're battling for third place at this point. Dr. Peppers and Mike have played wonderful strategic decisions to pit early, and they've gotten away from us, and the gaps really aren't decreasing all that much. It's pretty much staying consistent gaps between us. So myself and Brady at this point are battling for third place, and I noticed that in some instances I am a little bit quicker, in some instances I'm not as quick. It feels like my consistency isn't quite as good. I do get it back a little bit the further on that the race goes, but as you can see, we are so close together battling here, and I decide to basically sort of strike while the iron's hot. I'm putting in some quick times, I'm feeling a bit better than what I was doing earlier in the second stint. I make my final pit stop. Dr. Pepper's already made his final pit stop as well. So I lose a position here back into 4th place overall. But yeah, I decide to make my final pit stop here, and ultimately I'm just waiting to see what happens when Brady makes his final pit stop and where I'll come out. Unfortunately, we are robbed of that battle as Brady disconnects before he is able to make his third and final pit stop, so that pretty much means that battle is over. And that's what it looks like on the screen now, to disconnect from a multi-class endurance championship race. Doesn't happen very often, doesn't happen to many people, but that's what it looks like. But Merphos comes through to win in GT1 here, as you can see there. Oracle gets a good second place, with Nefarious having a good showing as a reserve driver in 3rd place. And then we have Mike BWFC does get the win in GT2. He had a fantastic tactical decision there during the race, and his pit stops were really on point. They were perfect, and that's what ultimately got him the win. He had very good pace as well, and very close run battle at the end there, as you can see. Dr. Peppers finishes in 2nd place for GT2. Again, just, you know, they were more on point with their tactical decisions, I think, than I was. I come home in 3rd place, and we were unfortunately robbed to be able to see what would have happened if and when Brady made his 3rd and final pit stop. We were robbed to be able to see whether I would have come out ahead or not, unfortunately. And Drombars was one of the last people to cross the line, finishing in the lead of GT3. So Merphos gets the win in GT2 once again, GT1 once again. Mike gets his first win in GT2, and Drombars gets his first win in GT3 as well. In terms of the championship, again, it's very early to really talk about the championship at this point. There's not an awful lot we can really say about it, but it's a very good start for my Ron Racing team, because another 40 points out of a possible 45. We had 2 first places and a 3rd place. My turn to finish 3rd this time, so we are we do have a decent amount of points already in the championship, but you know, it's a long way to go. Anything can happen. I never expect anything when it comes to the multi-class endurance championship, but I've learned that definitely over the course of doing these seasons. But now we've got the Xbox One and PC races to cover. The main story of the Xbox One race was King Blaze, the winner of round 1, got off into the lead very early. As you can see in the top left, he's making that overtake, gets into the lead, and he doesn't look back. In terms of GT2, we have Trumpet Master, who's in the bottom left. He started in last place for GT2, and he has a really good battle throughout the race. He makes some great positions on the first lap, and then has a really good battle with RJ Slow, who certainly isn't slow by any stretch of the imagination based on the evidence of this race. He has a really good battle with him for a lot of the race, but ultimately manages to take home the victory. So Trumpet Master goes from last to first in GT2, a really good showing from him. And then in GT3 we had Bar 27, who is a new driver to the championship. He wasn't in round one, but he will be in it for the rest of the season. He put in a very good performance, sort of getting into the lead relatively early and relatively straightforwardly, and just leading away from there. So it seems like on all platforms, whether it was PC, Xbox One or PS4, this round was a little bit more characterized by people getting into the lead and then not a lot really happening behind. Seemed to be a little bit more larger gaps between people this round than there were last round, and probably than there will be in the future. And that's the effect of traffic. Like I've said at the start of the video, the traffic here was pretty crazy, and the GT1s were so much quicker than the GT2s and GT3s that they lapped us about 4 or 5 times throughout the course of the race. And it's going to get, there are going to be some rounds that are hectic like that. There's going to be some rounds where the gaps are a little bit further apart. That's just the nature of a multi-class endurance championship and having different cars and different tracks on different rounds. And it's all about managing that traffic. And, my example of the pit stop at the very start of my race, where I was able to make that pit stop as soon as the GT1s caught us up. That saved me a lot of time, and that was a good strategical decision there. But then, with this new idea of pit stops, you've got to be on the ball all the time and making sure that you're making your pit stops at the right time. You don't want to stay out too long if you're being caught, and if you're getting involved in a battle, really you want to try and pit to, if you have the pace, to be able to overhaul them. And that's exactly what Mike did in the GT2 race on PS4. Just a great decision there to make that pit stop. Saw what was happening, and I wasn't able to see that. And Dr. Peppers did the same thing and got a good second place out of it as well. But those two guys were certainly very very quick this round as well. I definitely wasn't feeling it this round from my own personal perspective and my own performance. I was never really comfortable with the car and the track throughout the whole race, really. And there were some instances where I just was driving terribly, like you even saw on the screen at one point. So it was, I'm happy to have gotten a third place out of it. This is the battle that I mentioned with Trumpet Master and RJ Slow, as Trumpet Master goes for the lead in GT2, and this is ultimately what gets him the lead and the win of the race for the GT2 Xbox side. But it's just, I'm quite happy to have gotten third place out of this race, to be honest. I wasn't expecting it, and yeah, it was a tough one. So if my tough racers can finish with a third place throughout the course of the championship, I'd be more than happy with that. Just a shame that we didn't get to see that final battle with Brady because of his disconnection. It's just the nature of things with this game, but just such a shame. In terms of the Xbox One Championship, like I said, it's very early to really say anything about the championship, but it's going the same way in terms of the top spot in GT1 as on PS4. Murphos is leading the way with 2 wins there, and then King Blaze is leading the way with 2 wins on Xbox One. But there's a long way to go, and with the idea of dropped scores, so you can drop your 2 worst rounds in terms of your worst scoring rounds throughout the course of the championship. I'll explain more about it as we go through the videos and the season. There's still an awful lot to play for, and honestly at this point it's pretty much impossible to say who's going to win or who's going to finish second or third. There's so much still to go in terms of the championship. We're only on round 2. But I think it's good to, at least put the championship tables there for you guys to see how it's going throughout the course of the championship. And if you ever want to watch this back, or people are watching it in 2-3 years time and want to see how the championship went. In terms of the PC side, we had a really good battle between Smithy112 and Zenvo. Last week's winner on PC, Avivo, wasn't here for this round. Again, the dropped scores thing comes into that, so he will be able to drop his this round. He's gotten 0 points for not turning up. This round he wasn't able to, but that won't affect his overall championship points because he can drop his 2 worst. That will obviously be one of his worst. So it's only your best 8 rounds out of the 10 that count in terms of points. Smithy112 was so close to getting that lead last time out in round 1, getting that victory. This time he does manage to go 1 better, but it was a little bit difficult to originally get up into the lead. He gets up into second place here. As you can see, we've got Smithy and Zenvo in the top two shots here. We got GT2 and GT3 in the bottom 2 as well. Benimi and GT3 started at the front and just drives away, so not an awful lot to really say about the GT3 battle there. In GT2, Cloud McShort gets his first win of the season as well, his first win since season 3. So yeah, again, same sort of thing, characterized by people getting out relatively early and not really losing the lead. Zenvo, as you can see here, gets into second place ahead of Smithy, and then ultimately gets ahead of Serenio, who's currently in the lead. Both of them manage to do that, and they both end up battling with each other for the lead of the race a few laps into the race. But yeah, there was actually a good battle, I would say, in GT2 on PC. Obviously, we spectate the races live on Saturdays for the Xbox One and PC races, and there was quite a good battle in GT2, between Mountain Jed, Gooey Goose, and Cloud McShort. They were all there or thereabouts at the front of the pack, but ultimately Cloud McShort was able to come home with his first win of the season. And it's good to see some names from seasons 2 and season 3 and people who've been in it for a while, getting wins again. This is what I was talking about with the battle with Zenvo and Smithy in GT1. We see that Zenvo is up into first place. We're maybe 15-20 minutes into the race at this point, and it's this is where the battle is heating up, you could say, for the lead in GT1. And Smithy manages to get a good run coming out of the first corner, gets up the inside there, gets the overtake done, and just like in the Xbox One and PS4 races, someone gets into the lead of GT1 and doesn't look back, and that's pretty much it. And Smithy goes on to take his first win of the season, the win that eluded him by a few tenths of a second in round 1. And like I said, too early to read into the championship because of Avivo there in 5th place. He will come back into it later on because he will be able to drop his worst rounds, and this will be one of them. So yeah, too early to really read into the championships, but it's interesting in the PC Teams Championship. When you look at this point there, they are so close, even from 1st to 8th place in the teams. Incredibly small differences between the teams in terms of points there. But yeah, that is round 2. I hope you enjoyed the video. There wasn't an awful lot too much to talk about in this one in comparison to round 1, but round 3 is certainly going to be very, very action-packed, so look out for that one. But yeah, if you missed round 1, like I said, have a look at it, but hopefully you enjoyed this video. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.